Why become a director? Why do you want to become a director? Indeed, why would anybody want to become a director? Directorships bring risk, responsibility, and no privileges. Companies need directors to constitute a board and to direct their operations. But why would anyone choose to become a director? Let's get one thing straight first. Becoming a director has no relation with owning shares. You can be a director without owning shares, and you can own shares without becoming a director. There are three elements in a company: the company itself, the shareholders, and the directors. And these are entirely independent. In addition, there's a whole range of stakeholders to consider. The next thing for you to understand is that limited liability applies to the company. It doesn't apply to the directors. It is important that you understand this and ensure that your board keeps proper records and follows proper processes and procedures. Although in most cases it will be the company that takes or doesn't take actions that put it at risk, there are certain circumstances when that risk can pass to the directors. It is important that you take steps to ensure that you are aware of such risks and protect yourself by properly considering the implications of decisions and by keeping proper minuted records of both the board's considerations and their decisions. If you disagree with the decision, even if you're outvoted, you can still be liable for the results. Do make sure that your objection is recorded. Your biggest risk is likely to be financial. The board must at all times ensure that it can reasonably expect to be able to pay its creditors. The board must be constantly vigilant about wrongful trading, overtrading, or trading fraudulently. It is an offence for a company to continue to trade while insolvent. Further, it is also an offence to enter into an agreement where doing so would result in the company becoming insolvent. If it does, then the directors can become personally liable for those debts incurred after the date that it became insolvent. Should a company get into financial difficulties, the board is expected to minimise creditors' losses and should take legal and/or financial advice on the best and most prudent courses of action. As a director, you should at all times be able to demonstrate that the board has been exercising reasonable care, skill and diligence, and that the directors have had regard to the likely consequences of any decision in the long term. Directors can also be liable if the company fails to implement proper processes covering health and safety, employment law, control and disposal of hazardous waste. And in the UK, a director may also be liable for failure by the company to make required filings at Companies House. You can mitigate these risks by taking out professional indemnity insurance and by learning to become a professional and effective director. Further, you should be prepared to exercise your right to obtain professional advice either from company officers or from independent professionals. A word of warning: you don't even need to become a formal director to be at risk. You can take on liabilities of a director unknowingly by becoming what is known as a shadow director, if the directors of a limited company are accustomed to acting in accordance with your directions or instructions. However, professional advisors giving advice in their professional capacity are specifically excluded from the definition of a shadow director in UK companies legislation. Do make sure that you are clear about your status. Now, here's the good news. I've deliberately covered the bad news and the warnings right up front, because very often people choose to become directors for the wrong reasons and with a fair degree of naivety. After all, director has a certain kudos, and it does look good on your business card. Appointment of a director can be a natural stage in your career development and an exceedingly rewarding activity. Directors are involved in an organisation at a higher, more strategic level. They have greater leverage and make a greater contribution. It can also, of course, be financially rewarding. You should be expecting some compensation for your expertise, experience, and the additional risk that you take on. So think carefully before accepting a directorship, and then take your responsibilities seriously and ensure that the board is consistent in its adoption of best practice. If you'd like to know more about your roles, responsibilities and duties as a director, then you can do so by obtaining my book, The New Director's Handbook. You'll find details on the next slide.